Yes.
Good evening, welcome to the March 9th, 2020 Clifton Park Town Board meeting. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Teresa, if you will call the roll.
Councilman Whalen? Here. Councilman Stanton? Here. Councilman Romano is out of town. Councilwoman Holloway? Here. Supervisor Barrett?
Here. Okay, communications and announcements. Any takers this evening? Just a couple of announcements I want to make regarding the town and now the county as far as the response to the growing concern about the coronavirus across the country and certainly in the capital region. There's 2 cases that were confirmed in Saratoga County. We have here in Clifton Park recently, and this was in some of the recent press in the last week, we have formed a Clifton Park Public Health Committee for the town. The committee will promote good health in our community throughout the year. We'll also serve as a rapid response team to share resources and information during times of concern. And I just want to thank everybody that has agreed to be a part of it. We have policymakers from the town, which is important with any initiative like this. Shen Superintendent Oliver Robinson, the administrator from Clifton Park EMS, Alan Bell, our town health officer, Gail Buckley, Jonesville Fire Department, who conducts EMS calls on a regular basis. They will be represented, as well as County Health and Sheriff Zerlo at this time. This committee will grow and maybe be limited based on the time of the year and the circumstances before us. But in any case, it will serve a very important purpose in the town. And there's always reminders that we try to disseminate out to residents. Obviously, people are very concerned about the coronavirus. Not to pile on, but on a beautiful day like today, it's in the 70s. Looks like we might have an early spring. Knock on wood. So people are going to be outside enjoying our growing number of parks and recreational resources around the town, but you have to be very cautious about ticks. You have to be prepared for that. So every season brings challenges. You know, the flu. Flu is a huge challenge for our country this year. Tens of thousands of people die of the flu every year. So there's many reminders and information I think we can disseminate on a regular basis to remind residents to take common sense precautions to protect themselves. As far as, you know, I've received many questions in recent days. Has the town changed work policies for employees? Have we restricted access to any of the public buildings? You know, questions along those lines. The answer is no on all the above. So we are continuing to operate as usual. I don't foresee that changing anytime soon. You know, it's important that everybody do what makes them feel comfortable. You know, the senior center, for instance, you know, we're taking extra precaution with cleaning, making sure door handles are clean throughout the day. The bathrooms are cleaned more often. Anything we can do to eliminate the threat of germs of any type within the senior center. But I know there's some people that are very concerned about going to any public place. And that's a personal decision that they would have to make, that, you know, we're not going to restrict the hours or access to the senior center, but obviously if you don't feel comfortable going to an event there, then, you know, I would recommend that you not. So we have to make our own decisions and do what we're comfortable with. But we're, as far as town is concerned, we're doing everything we can to get information out to everybody and to ensure that all needed steps are taken. Along those lines, there was also a task force that was recently put together, myself and some colleagues, towns of Clifton Park, Half Moon, Malta, Moreau, and Wilton. It's a Saratoga County Public Health Northway Corridor Task Force. So it's those 5 towns. There might be more that will join as well. It's myself, Supervisor Shop, Supervisor Tollison of Half Moon, Supervisor Lant of Wilton, Supervisor Kuzniers of Moreau, and Supervisor O'Connor of Malta. And we've been meeting as a group recently about the county's response to the coronavirus, amongst other issues. We want to ensure that we can be as helpful as possible using the resources and know-how that we have within our towns, which is extensive, to help the county with the response and any operational actions that need to be taken as certain circumstances warrant. We'll also ensure that we're disseminating information to the residents of those towns, as well as all county residents, and doing whatever we can to protect all of the residents of our towns and the county as a whole. So today, 3 of us met with county health officials up in Saratoga at the county health office. So there's some meetings that are been arranged for the next week to make sure that as many people as possible are prepared with the information needed, not only to respond to any concerning situations, but also make sure that that information gets out to public via public options, such as the press, social media, websites, all the usual avenues that we use to disseminate public information. So those are a couple of the efforts, and I see both of these efforts, both on the town level and also myself and colleagues on the Northway Corridor, those efforts continuing. I think they'll make a difference for all our towns in 2020, but I see those initiatives continuing for many years into the future. So that's about it on that. If there's no other communications or announcements, we'll get right to business. We do have a public hearing on tap tonight, and Teresa, could you read the public notice as it appeared in the Gazette?
It appeared on February 21st. Town of Clifton Park, County of Saratoga, State of New York, notice of public hearing regarding proposed 6-month moratorium on subdivision approval in western Clifton Park. Please take notice that the town board of the Town of Clifton Park will conduct a public hearing on March 9th, 2020 at 7:05 p.m. in the Wood Memorial Meeting Room, the town office building located at Town Hall Plaza, Town of Clifton Park, County of Saratoga, State of New York, to consider a proposed local law establishing a 6-month moratorium on residential subdivision approvals in the town's conservation residential zoning district, encompassing most of the western portion of Clifton Park. The proposed legislation would supersede and suspend portions of the New York State town law, which sets forth timeframes and default deadlines for such approvals, and provide a relief mechanism through the town board. Copies of the proposed local law are posted on the website and are available for review of the town clerk's office during normal business hours.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. And this involves the possibility of the town updating the Western Clifton Park GEIS that was conducted more than a dozen years ago. At that time, it was a very forward-thinking and important document, and continues to be to this day. But as time passes, we all understand, after conducting long-term planning studies, it's important that they be reviewed and updated, and that's what we're considering here with this public hearing. John, if you could go through the scope of work and some of the details, sir?
Yes, just for everybody's information, the Western Clifton Park GEIS and Open Space Plan was developed over a 2-year period, at which time an 18-month moratorium was instituted back from 2003 to 2005. As of April 11th of this year, that document that created the zoning that we see today in Western Clifton Park will be 15 years old, which is why the town board is looking to do an update at this point in time, because there were short-term, long-term goals, and it was basically a 20-year projection of where the community would see itself at that time. So now is a good time to look and take a new snapshot of where we are today, where we came from, and where we think we'll be going for the next 20 years as part of an update to the GEIS. And GEIS stands for Generic Environmental Impact Statement. As part of the GEIS, we'll be looking at the capital improvement plan. We'll be looking at the fee schedule that was assigned to the GEIS in 2005. We'll look at the Open Space Fund as a tool that was developed and recommended as part of the GEIS, and then subsequently instituted with zoning revisions. And as part of that, we have an open space density incentive program. We will be evaluating new technologies such as ground-mounted solar arrays. We'll be looking at traffic and where we are today relative to not only Clifton Park, but the growth around us in the greater capital region and what the trends are showing going forward. We'll also look to update the land conservation plan. During the moratorium, the only item that would be affected is subdivisions within the conservation residential zoning district only for a 6-month period, and that would be any new applications filed after the adoption of the moratorium goes into effect. So any pending applications for a subdivision would be considered, and again, it only affects the CR, Conservation Residential Zoning District. So for example, Hamlet Mixed Use, Hamlet Residential Zoning Districts also identified in the Western Clifton Park. GEIS would not be affected at this time. It would not prohibit somebody from pulling a building permit as a right to construct a home. It would not prohibit somebody from bringing a site plan forward if they had a use that was a permitted use within the town code. Again, it's just the splitting of parcels within that CR zone over the next 6 months while the town board and staff takes time to evaluate and update the information from the study that is 15 years old.
Okay. Thank you, John. Appreciate that. So that's the scope of work and some of the elements of the plan that will be of specific focus as we go through and update the document. So at that, are there any comments from the board at this time? Okay. All right, then we'll open it up for public comment if you'd like to speak on this matter. And again, it's about the consideration of implementing the 6-month moratorium and continuing with the update of the document. And that's what the public hearing is about. So if there is anybody that would like to speak, gee, I didn't even get going here, Dave. But come on up. Please raise your hand. We'll ask that you state your name and address for the record, and please keep it to 5 minutes or less. How you doing?
Good. David Miller.
You must be ready.
Yes. Good to see you. 12 Hidden Valley Lane, and chair of the town's open space, trails and riverfront committee. So I don't have a long statement, but I do want to just talk a little bit about tonight and moving forward, and fully state that the Open Space Committee fully supports the town's efforts to further preserve, maintain, and manage our open spaces. And we have a model program in Clifton Park, and we always welcome the effort to make improvements to that program moving forward and build upon the successes that we've had. So under tonight's proposal, and as you talked about the scope of work as we move forward, I wanted to share with you tonight, usually I do a little later in the spring, but our annual goals of the Open Space Committee. So I thought the timing would be appropriate for tonight as you move forward with this effort, because much of what you're talking about in your scope of work and what you're doing overlaps with those. So I have generally, there are 6 copies just to put out there, and provide those with you. Now these open space goals relate to everything from stewardship of sites to new open space projects to events and educational activities to farmland to trails and so forth. But I'm only going to focus on 3 of them that I think tonight overlap. One is we're in the process of updating our acquisition subcommittee property list for open space projects in town-wide, whether eastern part of the town. I mean, we had a thoroughbred lane project just recently, which we got some county funds for, that's moving forward, but also in the western part of town. I talked to Don tonight. Right now, we've had some meetings in December and January, and right now the planning department is updating that document of where are there some priority areas in the western part of town that could overlap with this type of scope of work in the creation of the Green Sea. And when the Friends of Clifton Park speaks, we fully support the Open Space Committee, the concept of the Green Sea, and moving forward. So we think that document will be useful in your scope of work as we move forward, where we see some of the high priority efforts. The other thing that's interesting that's been going on for the past year is Rocky at the Planning Board and us have been meeting together in collaboration to start a long-term assessment of open space in the western part of town and where there are some of the most critical and sensitive areas, and where these critical and sensitive areas have overlap and are contiguous in nature between large parcels. So when a development proposal comes before the planning board, if we could early on in the process identify what the critical areas are and where there's opportunities for adjacent connections for contiguous open space under the program and the guidelines of the program because of the 50% set aside, we could be ahead of the game and we could save everyone time and money and have a greater public benefit and open space benefit because obviously we're not going to buy every piece of property in the western part of town, and those that are developed in a way that maximize the goals of creating a green sea. And then the third is, we've been very active over the years, and Isabel is here, and she is the poster child and lady and grand dame of farmland preservation in Clifton Park. And what we look towards is continuing that effort with other farms. This year, we've had workshops in the past. We hope to do more in the future. This year, the state has its fund available for conservation easements for farmland preservation. But part of our agenda is that, and we adopted this also as we were finalizing our goals and just after our goals, so I want to include it in this because in the same meeting we called for this need. To really, it's time for the town to do a comprehensive farmland preservation plan. Many communities have done these in upstate New York where they've gotten some state or other areas funds, have created a preservation plan that looks at all the tools in the toolbox available to help our farmers and help our farmers stay whole and move forward. And I would encourage the town to consider that type of approach as you're doing your scope of work, the feasibility of doing that and getting funds for that, and partnering with an organization like the American Farmland Trust, who have a track record in working in communities for developing farmland preservation plans. So again, we applaud open space efforts in Clifton Park. We look forward to working with you as the Committee for Open Space in Clifton Park, and we think that in moving forward, these additions to your scope of work can help make a model program even better. Thank you.
Great, thanks Dave, appreciate it. Thank you for your efforts along with the committee. Yeah, we've permanently preserved 4 farms so far. And we're always looking for new partners along those lines, so hopefully there will be some additional interest, but we've made some great progress there. We wanted to continue. Another recent outlet for farmers choosing a way that ultimately is helping them keep their land without having to sell it is the free flowing of green energy money in New York State. There's plenty of that. It's non-stop and it's coming like a tidal wave. So we've had a few farmers take advantage of the opportunity to get public money, which is what it is, subsidies from New York State to build these large solar farms, and obviously the large landowners / farmers are getting a decent amount of revenue from that. And like I said, I guess the positive side is they're able to keep their property without having to sell it, and I guess once those panels are done in 20 years, well, they can be removed and maybe go back to farming. Who knows? But we'll see. Anyone else that would like to? Yes, right. Brian Sue.
Susan's going to pass out the memo.
Oh, you're there.
Thank you.
I look like that Norman Rockwell. Okay, Raymond Seymour, 7 Nyla Road. I'm representing Friends of Clifton Park Open Space tonight. You have in front of you a memo, position paper, whatever, that we have developed, and I'm going to hit the highlights of that, and hopefully we'll get the gist out. First of all, I want to say that Friends supports the imposition or the adoption of a moratorium for a 6-month period for the Western GEIS study area. We have, I think, it was noted in the public announcement that the moratorium will evaluate the development impacts in the area that have occurred since the adoption of the CR zone in 2005. Friends believes that this moratorium should be enacted in order to determine if the open space preservation and agricultural protection plans have proceeded as they were intended. In other words, can we still expect the maximum number of residents in the western Clifton Park area, as envisioned by the Western GEIS, to be approximately one-third of the pre-open space plan estimates? And have we been successful in our efforts to sustain those farms in the western area? Should the moratorium be adopted, we would like to see a few items considered. One is PDDs. Right now there are some PDDs in the western part of town. They predominantly are golf courses. Some of us who were on the Open Space Committee back in 2002 looked at the open spaces available through the golf courses and realized, okay, they're open, we'll leave them alone. That they shouldn't be part of the plan to go forward with the rezoning. And I think that was done because I think at the time we assumed that the golf industry itself was pretty stable. Well, in the last few years, at least last 10 years, we found that that's not the case. There have been many golf courses in the country that have gone under, and some are failing now. Indeed, there are some that have been failing in Clifton Park itself. Those 4 golf courses, 2 of them have come forward with plans to develop residential options. One would completely eliminate the golf course, the other one would continue the golf course, but reduce the number of holes available. We think that if a PDD is to be changed because of the purpose of the use of the original PDD, then it should revert to, that PDD area should revert to the CR zone that surrounds it. And especially if there's not going to be any of the original purpose left. Also, we'd like to talk a little bit about renewable energy production. As the supervisor said, in the last year we've seen 4 solar farms developed in the western part of town. And of those 4, 2 required that pretty much all of the forested area be removed to allow for the installation of all of the solar panels. Within that context, one of those was farmland. And we're kind of wondering if this is the case in the CR zone, why the original CR zone requirements would not apply to an inherently industrial use as it does with a residential use. It seems to us that there are set-asides that have been available, 50% of the total volume of the area.
Right, you have 1 minute left?
I do have 1 minute? Okay, gotta move fast. Anyway, we'd like to have those considered, the PDDs and the solar farms. Also, who controls the open spaces? There have been some developments, from what we have seen, where there have been some developments that the open spaces have been categorized as large lot, homeowner-owned parcels. And we think that this is a mistake because you're basically depending on deed restrictions, which are pretty much ineffectual when it comes down to it. We'd like to see the town own it or a third-party conservation organization. We'd also like to see that there be some consideration for zoning variances. We've had 2 cases in the past 4 years, in which zoning variances were granted to very small developments, but they were granted, and there were substantial zoning variances.
I'm sorry, can you wrap it up?
Okay. 30 seconds? Okay. The zoning variances were substantial enough that there was no CR zone requirements that were honored from the perspective of available land being made available for open space, at least in one of those cases. The other case, in both cases, neither grieving people owned the land at the time. So we'd like to have some considerations for zoning variances. The corporate commerce zone, we'd like to see a relook or review of the corporate commerce zone. If in fact there is open space still in that corporate commerce zone, we'd like to see it incorporated in the CR zone.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you much. The corporate commerce zone has its own GEIS. You're familiar with that?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
We understand.
So that's a separate issue. Yeah. As far as the solar, again, I mean, the town was part of and John was a representative, but the town was asked to be a part of a statewide working group that came up with the first statewide unified permit for solar, because we've been out front on solar siting regulations. And so we're very in tune and knowledgeable about the unified permit, why it was comprised the way it was, what were the elements and discussion points that were involved during the process leading to its adoption. But like I said, I mean, there's green money flowing. It's your money, it's public money, and there's a lot of rich people getting much richer because of subsidies and public money subsidizing these projects. Because once the public money comes in and makes the project, we've talked about this before, makes the project a no-lose situation, then the investment bankers bring in some private money, they take over the project, and there's a lot of money to be made over the next 20 years because the project has been subsidized. There isn't a green project that I know of that can result in a return on investment unless it is heavily subsidized with public money. So that's your money being used, and let's face it, you look at large-scale solar projects here and across the nation, denuding a piece of property to put in green energy doesn't seem to be a big concern as far as the people pushing green energy policy is concerned. So that's and if a project is of a certain size currently, these really big projects that you see occurring in some areas, there is no local decision making involved once it gets to a certain size. It very well could be, as of April 1st or whenever the new budget gets approved, that there will be no local control, there will be no local decision making on any solar project or any windmill or any green energy project would not involve any local decision making. So this is the emphasis between the money and the absolute impetus that the state is putting toward there being zero impediment to these green energy projects being constructed and quickly. And if they have to take away local decision making, well, that's what they've decided that they're going. That's what they've decided they're going to do. They're going to take away local decision making, not just for the largest projects, but all the projects. So I dare say there'll be more solar projects in Clifton Park if they upgrade the substation. Now, there is one solar project, the last one that came in the door. They're not quite sure if it actually can be constructed. Right now, National Grid is doing a study to see if they can accept the energy from this fifth solar farm that's been submitted for the Appleton Road area. So that's going to take, I don't know, John, another month or so, I think it is.
For the National Grid to get back,
Yeah.
at least another month.
Yeah, so if National Grid comes back and says we can't accept that energy, there's too much solar, we can't accept it, then that project won't go forward. If they say they can, then it will go forward. As far as I'm concerned, you see this green energy money, millions and millions and millions of dollars of your money being used to subsidize these projects. I don't think the town of Clifton Park Town Board should stand in the way and say, not in our backyard. We're not going to allow large landowners and farmers in Clifton Park who want to access these funds to benefit. Why would we stand in the way and tell these landowners and farmers, well, you know what, everybody around you in other municipalities is benefiting and receiving these funds, but not you. That makes zero sense to me. So we can, I'd like to have a discussion on what people think about, not tonight because it's not what we're here for, but we're talking about this public hearing, but I'd like to have a discussion. Is anybody concerned about all of their public money, millions and millions, being used to subsidize all these projects? I think that's a discussion we can have, and I'll talk with you about that all night. But the bottom line is, if the state has these projects and has this money, we have landowners, large landowners and farmers that can take advantage of it, and they can then afford to keep their property. Personally, I'm not going to stand in the way of that. So that's where I stand on that. Okay. Anybody else that would like to? Yes, Mr. Glick.
Hi.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. My name is Brian Glick. I'm from 96 Hubs Road. which is in the CR zone. I'm also the chair of the Environmental Conservation Commission. My fellow colleagues are here also. Don't want to take their thunder away. I have two hats that I would like to wear tonight. First being ECC chair. We have submitted a letter to the board and the planning department showing support for the proposed moratorium on building. We also wanted to add that we want to make sure that there's enough time to do the adequate evaluation of GEIS. So if it needs to be extended, the ECC does strongly support that. From a homeowner, landowner in the conservation residential zone, actually I have two pieces of property, the parcel next to us, 94 Hubs Road. We have been, we went through the process after the conservation residential zoning went into effect. And we were able to go from what my in-laws, who my wife, her grandfather owned that as a farm, to her to build a house along with my brother-in-law. And one of the things that we were looking to do was eventually, we found a builder who wanted to build more houses, but because it was conservation residential, 3 acres for every 1 acre of home. So your home had to be on 1 acre, and there had to be 3 acres of open space. So we conformed with that. We actually wound up just putting 4 lots into that area and allowing one of the lots to be about 50 acres for a horse farm, or what it is right now is an agricultural place where they grow food to buy on the streets and the street vendor up in Hubs Road. Our house, along with the lot next to us, are a buildable home. We can build a home on it, has septic fields that could be utilized on that. And throughout that process, we have followed the rules and done what we're supposed to do. As I've been a member of the ECC and working with my fellow colleagues, we've also seen many different projects come through where my colleagues and I have voiced our concerns about those projects trying to find certain loopholes in the ECC's rule and the code. So one of the things that we would like to see in this reevaluation process, it's been 15 years since since conservation residential has come into the code. As with any program, a good assessment, a reassessment of what happens with that program is vital. And I would hope that there would be enough time to adequately make sure that that watershed that's going on in the GEIS, which is a very sensitive zone where a lot of us get our water, and Colony gets our water from also, and ensures that we maximize the build out of what could possibly be, and that's part of the planning board, a planning department's job. So we, as the ECC, stand with the town to support this project. So I yield back the rest of my time. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you much. Yes?
Hi, my name's Keith Martin, 8 Wall Street, Clifton Park. I like the concept of community solar, and those are the projects that we have been getting in the town. However, the caveat is, if the development of community solar is inconsistent with long-established community goals and objectives, it creates problems for me. The question I have is that all of the community solar projects in town have been National Grid projects. I happen to be a NYSEG customer because that's the only service where I live. I'd like to know how I can get in on a community solar project
Did you call him nice?
in my town as opposed to having to go to Washington County.
Yeah.
So that's really my only question and comment, and otherwise I'm pleased to be here.
Head south on Vischer Ferry Road
Well,
toward
that-
Clifton Park Center Road, then turn
We're here.
left onto Clifton Park Center Road.
If you're supposed to be here.
I am supposed to be here.
Well, there's a simple answer to that. It's the boundaries of the of where National Grid ends and NYSEG picks up, which is right the exit 9 area. So there's a very small area of town, and it's in the exit 9 area that NYSEG covers. So all the larger landscapes, farms, etc., in the town are National Grid. So there might be others happening near, not in Clifton Park, but perhaps Half Moon or some other areas that have larger NYSEG footprints. Anyone else? Yes.
Craig McLean.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
I represent the Edison Club. I'm the general manager there, and just to make sure that, you know, we're on the record for everybody as being one of the golf courses that has a standing PDD application at the town. That's been through this board and been through the planning board once. That we be delineated from the other golf course projects, because we feel like we presented a plan that's much, much different. And we also think that we presented a plan that has a lot of community benefit. Lastly, we presented a plan that permanently conserves well over 200 acres of land. So while there is a development and subdivision involved there, we would like to be on the record to say that it has a huge amount of green space and land conservation and community benefit beyond that. So, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Oh, Frank's here. It's been so quiet. Until now. He's not smiling either. He got his game face on. Buckeyes playing tonight, Frank?
980 Main Street, downtown Jonesville. Some of the things that when we talk about the farmland, I think when we set it aside, I envision farmland,
right,
with grass, not glass, you know.
Oh.
And I know you say money, but we did at Exit 10 one time. We had to have federal funds to put the sidewalk in. We had big meetings and problems about that, and we didn't take the federal money, you know. So
yes, we did.
You don't. Well, did we? Well, we got it narrowed down. Anyhow, they changed.
Oh, we changed the project,
yes,
but to make it
not
more palatable.
What they wanted. Okay.
Yeah.
So I may say some things that I don't know about, but I
okay.
do feel we worked on that, all right? And so I think the thing, they call it a solar farm, you know, is like, you know, you used to have ladies, you want to smoke, you want to lose weight, try Virginia Slims, you know? They come up with the words, and so some people say in 20 years, it'll go back to farmland. Well, 20 years it may go back to something else, you know?
Yeah.
So I do feel that, you know, the farmers, we bought development rights, we did what we could for them, and I agree, we want to try to help people. But I do think that we could look at a lot of other different ways to do some things, okay?
Sure.
You could look at, in Cape Cod, they put most of the solar panels on the roof because they try to preserve their land. Our land in the western part of town, we already said there's very few farms left. We're trying to preserve farms. I don't think when I heard that, I was thinking we were going to put solar farms on them, you know. Which I just want to say, it just seems to be a change. It's something I didn't really think we were going to do. I thought we wouldn't put buildings there. We wouldn't be putting more things there. That it was kind of restricted. So I'm nervous about this, Phil. To tell you the truth, I just don't think it's as good as it makes it to be. Are we going to get enough electricity? Does my rates go down in my house? You know, and I do feel that they're pouring our tax money down a green hole, I call it, you know what I mean? But they use all these words, and it is a lot of money. You know, if they came to my house, they want to put them up for free, you know? And so, and I'll tell you what, the truth is I am hooked into solar panel in another town, in solar power, all right? Which I kind of now think about. I didn't think that much about it, and I really think we need to think about this, because boy, there's a lot coming here fast.
Yeah.
And that's something where I like the moratorium. I think it's great we're having it. I don't mean to be like all negative, but I think You gotta see what's going on, because, I don't know, I really don't know how good this is all gonna be. And, if we put them in our town, do we get the electricity, or does it go some other place? I mean, I don't even know how the whole thing works.
Goes into the grid,
Yeah.
yeah, the overall grid. Yeah.
So, I mean, we're cutting down trees, and we have a green committee that wants to plant trees,
Mhm.
you know? We're putting up, you know, I'll tell you what, I don't know if my figures are right, but I kinda looked up how many houses we have in town, and it said 16,000 homes, 16,000 homes in Clifton Park. And if you get the average roof and you do all that kind of stuff, and I half the roof, because you only want to cover half of them, you know, there's enough square footage for, I thought this is since an ex-math teacher, 14,800,000 square feet of footage. And in 1 acre, it was 43,560 feet, so if you were a math student, you would divide that out and find out. On those homes, you could put down 340 acres of solar panels on the rooftops. And it's not that people aren't doing that, so you can't laugh about it. A lot of people are doing it, okay?
Excuse me, Frank, I want to wrap it up.
There's a lot of people that are putting solar panels out in their parking lot.
Yep.
So we could help Hannaford, we could help all these other stores, and it shades the parking lot, it shades your roof, it provides a place for the snow to slide off in a different area. And the Conservation Magazine has a big article this month about the importance of trees, which are carbon eaters, you know, you want to be green. And I have to, Teresa, because I spent all this money buying these pictures for you.
You can email them, Frank.
No. You guys can see this too. Here's one. This is a big parking area where you can park your cars underneath, all right?
Yep, yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Time's up,
a lot of different places you can
There's
put
the other
solar.
picture.
Frank,
One
can I
last
tell
one,
you?
Teresa. Here's one in Cambridge. It's on the farm.
Right.
They raised them up higher so the animals can go underneath it.
Sure.
You don't need a fence. I mean, so we have a lot of different approaches.
I understand.
Because some animals are getting hung on that barbed wire. I know that. You know what I mean? I don't want to talk about that too much. Here's all on the telephone poles, the
Right.
lights.
Right.
So we have a lot of other things to look at.
Sure.
And thank you for a little more time, Teresa. There's the last one. That was cool.
Thank you, Frank.
I owe you big time. Thanks, guys.
We have that on tape. Frank, it's very simple. Do you know why they want to put it in meadows and pastures, and they're doing it all over the state? But it's easy.
It's cheap.
It's cheaper, it's easy, and, you know, there's, you know, if you start, you know, even building on landfills, where we built ours, and it was free, completely free. The town didn't put $1 into that project. It was a huge state subsidy with your tax money, and then private money that came in, just as I described before. But it's more expensive to build it on a landfill, because there's more engineering involved. They have to make sure that they don't break the cap on the landfill, and they have to construct it a different way. So it's much more involved and expensive. Just putting it on a flat piece of property, it's, you know, it's cheap, it's easy, and they can put, as you can see, they can put these solar arrays or solar farms up very quickly.
Other
so
people are doing it, Phil. You know, they're putting them higher,
Yeah.
they're putting them in parking
Oh,
lots.
sure.
Yeah.
But it's not our property. You know, it's private property.
Okay.
So they certainly could sell it for development. If they're not going to continue as a farm, they could sell it for development. This is another option that they've chosen because they do not want to be in a position where they need to sell the land. And obviously being a farmer is not any easier now than it was 20, 40, 60, 100 years ago, especially with the new New York State regulations that have come into play over the last couple of years. So,
The school and the town could be leaders and put them on their buildings and get other people to do it. You know, I mean, I think we could do
well,
that.
not every building is suited for it, and we've looked at putting it like on the ice arena and some other places. It's just not every building is suited for it. Not every project is financially feasible. So it's, but that's why they like those pastures and farmland and everything else. Yes, sir.
How about your park and rec building? That faces south, right? That new building you just put up?
Yeah.
Why don't you cover that with solar panels? It's
Well,
new,
yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
you don't have to replace the roof because it's metal. 'Cause
Right.
that's a problem if you replace the roof.
Right. Well, he's just throwing an idea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
John, did you identify yourself?
Oh,
Who are you, sir? Name, rank, and serial number.
I'll tell you after the meeting.
How we doing?
I know we're not talking about wind power tonight, but I feel like I may be
Uh-oh,
tilting
more
out.
green energy.
I may be
Green
tilting
energy
out
guys.
windows tonight.
Those are really expensive.
Good evening, my name is Dan Mathias.
And they kill a lot of birds and bats.
That's true. At 7 Birch Hill Road. Although I'm a member of the town's Environmental Conservation Commission, I'm going to speak as a private citizen this evening. When the town passed the regulations for establishing the CR zone in 2005, it was a visionary piece of legislation. Its goals were noble: to protect and enhance the rural character, the natural and scenic qualities of open space, and the agricultural heritage of Western Clifton Park, and provide for well-planned new development. The law was so notable for a local government that it was held up as a paragon for open space protection by organizations like the Pace University Land Use Center. It was a perfect counterpoint to the town center plan, which came along later on, where the business district zoning code envisioned increased building density, and mixed-use structures while promoting a walkable community. As with any piece of legislation, the CR zoning code did not envision all uses which might undermine the goals of the Western GEIS. For example, the subsequent revision in 2018 adjusted the formula for calculating two-family home density and the association amenity payment for increases in density. However, not all potential obstacles to the achievement of the original goals have been addressed in the past 15 years. New technologies such as community solar and industrial battery energy storage systems were not on the horizon in 2005 and have presented new challenges. These projects are a threat to open space preservation and in some cases have public health and safety risks that need to be addressed in our code. In fact, our comprehensive plan was approved in 2006 and does not address these technologies. Likewise, our solar, the town code has not addressed solar since 2011, and community solar is all brand new since that time frame. I believe that the original goals of the Western GEIS study are still relevant and must be reaffirmed. As with the original study and its findings, the key is to balance the interests of landowners and developers with the public's desire for a strategy that preserves open space and the rural character of Western Clifton Park. This balance can be achieved by strengthening the code to address those renewable energy projects that are not currently addressed by our regulations. The key is to recognize that environmental leadership is not just about saying no, it's just about knowing when and how to say yes, but only under these conditions. Communities throughout New York State and the Northeast are taking this approach and in the process preserving their quality of life. I believe that the community in general understands the impacts if we fail to develop clean energy solutions. If the intent of the moratorium is to balance the impact of these renewable energy projects with the need to protect scenic vistas, important agricultural lands, environmental resources, and the rural character of Western Clifton Park, I support the moratorium initiative and urge the board to provide ample resources and a public input process that will make this endeavor as noteworthy as the original study. Thank you.
Thank you.
I made it in 5 minutes.
You did. You did.
I was worried.
Oh, with time to spare. Hey, John, as far as the town code with solar, community solar is just it's a solar farm. It's just another way of you know, and I guess getting the community involved in getting that solar out to customers, but
Community solar was a new definition adopted by New York State in 2015.
but a solar array is a solar array.
We have in our code, like Dan pointed out, since 2011, ground-mounted solar array.
Right. Which is
Community-
what that is.
Yes,
Yeah.
community solar basically is a way for people who couldn't otherwise tap into solar panels on their own homes to provide themselves with green energy through subscribing to community solar, because prior to community solar projects, if somebody had solar panels on their roof, they would get a credit towards their energy bill, but they don't make money of the energy going back to the grid. They only get a credit off of their bill. This allows for community solar for people who otherwise wouldn't have access to rooftop solars to then participate.
Right, so, but that's just a definition in the style of project. It's a ground-mounted
It's a
solar
ground-mounted solar
project,
collector.
just like any other ground-mounted solar project.
Correct.
You know, I know there's been a couple comments about impact and, you know, treating green energy similar to, say, a housing development, but as defined in the GEIS and spelled out within that document, there are certain certain effects that development has that green energy doesn't. Green energy is not adding to the population, it's not adding to the traffic counts, and other factors that are called out, identified in the GEIS, and also mitigated in some way. So, so I don't see the impacts being the same, but what it's worth. Anyone else like to speak on this matter? Okay, oh, yes. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
I'm Wendy Lee Wagner, 608 Wake Road. I've been here before talking about the beauty of Wake Road,
Yeah.
our wetlands, our birds, our animals,
All right.
the traffic. I'm here to support continuing the moratorium while you look at this further. I was here many years ago when we were first discussing this. I have great concerns about the amount of growth that's going on in Clifton Park in general. I think at some point you have to say, enough, we had enough. I've lived in Saratoga County for 68 years. I've lived in Clifton Park for 30. I've lived in the same house on Wake Road for 30. I live off the grid. I drive my second Tesla. I make all my own energy. I have 45 panels. I'm on my second set of panels. I have 3 Tesla Powerwalls. Make all my own hot water. Grow my own food. I have only 2 acres. We retrofitted a 30-year-old house and made it totally energy efficient. So I don't just talk, I walk the walk. I personally cheer every time I see solar panels, no matter where they are, but I do understand the concerns about them when trees are taken down. I have often thought that, even though this isn't the topic tonight, that Clifton Park could be an incredible leader if when developers come to you and ask to build a house or another subdivision, I think we need requirements for geothermal, solar panels, power walls. You could be a leader in the country for asking developers, because we need this. It isn't going to matter how ugly solar panels are if there's no planet. So I sense a little bit of hostility towards solar panels being, where there were trees, but
Me too.
yeah. I didn't get a lot of money for me. I, paid for my own solar panels in my own car and my own power walls. But anyways, I really appreciate all that is being done for the western end. I still have some concerns about there being a lot more development out there. There's a lot of for sale signs and there's development plans. If you go on some of the real estate ads for some of the land for sale currently on 146, there's already subdivision plans on the site. But thank you very much for continuing this.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we have, since 2000, we started the open space planning process and developed the open space plan, and some of the folks here, like Dave, were here at that time when we got that underway, and now we're 1,700 acres permanently preserved since that time. So we have been rather aggressive, smartly aggressive, in using many tools to preserve properties, not only for farms, but many new recreational areas that you see around town, and we're very proud of those efforts. And we're always looking for new opportunities, as Dave mentioned as the first speaker tonight. We're always looking for new opportunities to make strategic purchases or some other form of land protection options, put those into play to further our goals of making sure there is a balance. Now, you say, we got to say, enough's enough, we can't do any more. That you can't do. You can use certain... You can... Did I really? How long ago was it?
We've had this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, we're still... it's still America.
It's a balance.
Yeah, it's still America. This is not... well, I don't want to point out other countries that maybe don't have property rights. But, I don't want to start an international incident tonight. But it is America. People have the right to do with their property to a certain extent within the zoning and regulations in a given municipality. And we do try to strike that balance. The town had 4,500 people back in 1960. By 1976, there were twice as many kids attending Shen as there were people living here 16 years earlier. Actually, it's probably more like 14 years earlier. So when you think about the amount of growth that occurred just in that short period of time, and then by the late 80s, we had 30,000 people living here. According to the census estimates, between 2010 and 2018, our population has decreased. In those 8 years, we've decreased 231 people, supposedly. So actually, our population's been going down this decade, according to the U.S. estimates. But there is a balance. There is still development projects taking place. But what we tend to focus on is the development. The tree coming down for a solar farm, a tree coming down for a house to be built. And by the way, I don't know if there's 16,000 houses. That sounds high, Frank, but John can work on that. But every house that was built in town, all of us, there was something disturbed when our homes were built, whether it be trees or anything else. So yes, we focus on something that's developed because we drive by and it's, oh, that's a change, right? It's development happening. What we don't tend to dig into is what is being preserved. Up the street here on 146A, there's a new development that'll be taking place. In the front of the property, trees were taken down, but when you look at the acreage being developed versus what's being permanently preserved, and we don't use that in our calculations for open space, that we don't use, because that's associated with the development, so we don't use that in our calculations. But as far as what's being developed and what's being preserved on that project,
I think there was at least 35% green space being maintained on that site.
But there were many more acres being preserved than developed, is my point. Out on Grooms Road, there's 22 houses that are being built off
Yes.
Grooms Road. But
On
how
a
many acres are being...
127 acre site.
Yeah,
That
27 acres site. And how many acres are being permanently preserved? Over 100, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
so-
a lot. There was only about 20 acres in the area for the homes going in.
Yeah, so you might see development, but there's also, and you know, Craig from the Edison Club mentioned tonight their project hasn't been approved, but certainly they make the argument that within that they can permanently preserve 200 acres with that project. So, so we need to look at, you know, everything in totality as well. I mean, we all want low taxes, we all want well-funded schools, we all want organizations that are dynamic and well-funded and can raise money, and we want our property values to increase. And all those things are happening in Clifton Park and have been, and it's not by accident. But we want to see it continue, and we're going to continue to have that balance that you spoke about. Because when you look at the massive amount of property we permanently preserve that's used for active recreation in all areas of town, we're very proud of that achievement.
Because you have zoning. You have good zoning laws, and that's what we're asking to keep.
Yeah.
Is keep to the zoning laws you have and be do it.
Sure, absolutely.
So we have these CR zonings, and we've been working on it from 1996, and you guys have been doing a great job. And that's all we're asking is to make sure that we keep those zonings in place for the future thing.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, Isabel. Since you were named before.
Hi, my name's Isabel Prescott. I live at 660 Riverview Road. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I've become inspired. I've been here my whole life, and I'm not all that young. And so I've seen a lot of changes in the town of Clifton Park, both good and bad. And I can really understand that word balance, because a lot of what's happened is not all that bad, and I would not want to necessarily go back to the way it used to be when I was a kid. Although I loved it back then, I wouldn't necessarily want to see it go back. Now, what I am passionate about is preserving agriculture in this town. On the other hand, I think there's even more emphasis in my own mind about preserving property rights and preserving the idea that I cannot be limited in what I want to do. I can actually remember back when at one point there was going to be a possible regulation that said that we absolutely had to keep the western part of town rural. Therefore, there was going to be zoning at one point that said we would not be able to sell our property. That would be like me coming to you as a homeowner and saying, no, you can't sell your property because now it should be like low-income housing or something. So that does not work for me. However, anybody who knows me will do that most anything I can to help the remaining farms that are in the town of Clifton Park. Now, I know almost all the farmers in Clifton Park. There aren't that many of us left anymore. And I know that they feel pretty much the same way that I do about doing whatever they can to preserve that property. Now, if in this case, if it's going to be solar farms or whatever, that option is available to them. Right. Maybe it's unfortunate that it is. Maybe we didn't really want that to happen in our government, but that is what has happened. And so I really think that if you want to preserve farms in Clifton Park, you absolutely have to think of every creative option. Right. That's my favorite word, is option, to make that happen. I am forever grateful that there was an option that was able to preserve my farm. I was able to take advantage of that. And so my farm will be here in perpetuity, hopefully. So that's all I have to say is I really approve of this moratorium, so you can look and see and try to figure out maybe there are some other ways that we can preserve farms in the western part of town.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And yeah, we do, as I mentioned before, we do want to continue to use every option available to work with our farms and large landowners. And thank you for those comments. You too walk the walk. Absolutely. So, thank you. The other thing I want to mention too is it was mentioned we secured a county grant to help with the purchase of a small parcel, Thoroughbred Way. There's also some county trail money there too to finalize that connection point so that long-awaited trail connection can go forward, and I know a lot of people are interested in that. But last year, when I was chairman of the County Economic Development Committee, there were a series of reforms that were presented and were eventually passed by the Board of Supervisors. So we got a lot done last year in changing the economic development focus, scope, and structure last year, and personally I think for the better. One of those items was a new program, a grant program for municipalities within the county. I named it the Economic Development Planning Fund, and it was an opportunity for municipalities to access grant funding for planning studies, GEIS studies, studies like the Town Center Plan, like the Western Clifton Park GEIS. So community and economic development planning studies. So we will be accessing some funds from that pool of money as well. That will help with this update of the Western Clifton Park GEIS. So just want to make sure everybody was aware of that. Anyone else? Okay. I do want to thank everybody that spoke tonight. It's truly important that you be part of the process. We're very fortunate as we go through all of these long-range planning studies that we've completed over the last 20 years. They're all living documents. It's a fluid process, but they're all living, breathing documents that we take very seriously, and that's why we do take some time to go back and update them after a period of time. So that's what we're doing here. That's what we'll do in other processes involving long-range planning studies. And without your participation, the process just isn't as valuable as it might be for us and for the town as a whole. So thank you all very much for being here tonight and giving us your 2 cents. And we'll look forward to more participation as we move forward with the process.
What does happen next? What is the next step?
The next step would be for the town board to vote to implement the moratorium or not. If we do vote to implement the moratorium, which I expect will be the case based on my discussions individually with board members and with the positive comments here tonight, at that point the study will begin. The update of the Western Clifton Park GIS study will begin, and we'll keep everybody updated as to our progress. We will have public meetings as we get later in the process, and then eventually have something that we can present, and eventually we'll get to the point where there's an update of the document that we can approve. Okay. Very good. So again, thank you everybody. We appreciate it very much. And I'm sure this isn't the last time we're going to come. Green energy, apparently. Thank you, sir. Good to see you. Amen.
We still have,
oh, well, it's on the agenda.
this is just a public
Yeah.
hearing.
Before we do the moratorium.
Oh.
Well, it's on the agenda tonight, so hopefully tonight we'll go into effect. Yeah.
I still have some time.
Yeah.
Good to see you. I'm sorry I'm not shaking her. I know.
Thank you. All right, Teresa, we do have several resolutions. If we can read through those, let's go.
A resolution adopting local law number 1 of 2022 establishing a moratorium on residential subdivisions within residential.
So they can adopt it tonight. Because you didn't seem to say that. Yeah.
Generic environmental impact statement whereas on May 5th, 2005, by resolution 2005, the board enacted conservation residential development in the western part of the town, and whereas the town board was directed to plan the department of study the current residential development solar project future development and establish open space environments and make recommendations for any updates to the western Clifton Park Park GEIS and resulting zoning code, and whereas on March 9, 2020, the town board held a public hearing on the proposal to impose a 6-month moratorium on further residential subdivision within the conservation residential zone in order to adequately conduct such studies of the future direction of such development that is most consistent with the best interest of the community, without conflicting projects and applications being processed while studies are underway. And whereas the proposal includes provisions to supersede and suspend sections 276 and 267B of the New York State Town Law relative to town period regulations and default provisions, as well as jurisdiction of the ZBA to grant relief from the moratorium under existing statutory timeframes, and to best jurisdiction to grant relief from such moratorium solely by the town board during the moratorium period. And whereas the Saratoga County Planning Board has reviewed the proposed pursuant to section 239M of the New York State General Municipal Law, finding that the proposal serves the community's interests, now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby adopts local law number 1 of 2020 as attached, to be it further resolved that the town clerk is directed to file same with the office of the Secretary of State and to provide appropriate notice of same, that the local law be posted promptly on cliftonpark.org. Resolution adopting an amendment to the town of Clifton Park employee handbook, whereas by resolution 131 of 2011, the town board authorized the supervisor to retain public sector HR consultants, LLC, PHHR, to consult with the town on all matters concerning human resources, personnel, management, and benefit administration. And whereas by resolution number 116 of 2012, the town board adopted the town of Clifton Park employee handbook prepared by PSHR Consultants, LLC, dated May 7th, 2012. And whereas pursuant to the consulting agreement, PHHR has recommended the adoption of an amendment to the employee handbook, striking the word occasional from section 511, use of communications systems and equipment policy. And whereas the town board has reviewed the proposed change, now therefore be it resolved that the town board adopts an amendment to the town of Clifton Park employee handbook, striking the word occasional from section 511, use of communication systems and equipment as prepared by PHHR Consultants, LLC. A resolution authorizing the town supervisor to enter into an extension of a license and service agreement with County Waste and Recycling Services Incorporated, whereas the town board adopted resolution number 89 of 2016 on April 4th, 2016, authorizing the supervisor to enter into a 5-year license agreement with County Waste and Recycling Service Incorporated for townwide yard waste curbside collection and operation of the town's compost facility, upon awarding a bid in response to the request for proposals. And whereas the original term of the existing lease and service agreement is in effect until November 30th, 2020, and it contains an option to renew the agreement for an additional term on mutual consent of the parties. And whereas County Waste and Recycling Incorporated has requested a 2-year extension of the lease and service agreement through November 30th, 2022, with terms and pricing to remain as outlined in the contract. And whereas the town board wishes to extend the contract for 2 more years with terms and pricing to remain the same, now therefore be it resolved that the town supervisor is hereby authorized to enter into a 2-year extension to the lease and service agreement with CWRS to provide collection services for yard waste and to lease a portion of the transfer station property for composting operations in accordance with the attached agreement. Be it further resolved that all terms and provision of existing lease and agreement remain in full force and effect, and that the agreement be effective from December 1st, 2020 through November 30th, 2022. A resolution authorizing the hiring of pool management for the 2020 season per 2020 summer pool directors, managers, Schedule A. Whereas the town board wishes to hire management and training staff to operate the 3 town-owned pools for the 2020 season, and whereas the town board wishes to rehire the returning pool director and managers Dwayne Nichols, Brian Serpak, Bruce Tupin, as per Schedule A, 2020 summer pool directors and managers. Now therefore be it resolved that the individuals listed above and on the attached Schedule A are hereby hired as staff for the 3 town-owned pools. A resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign a lease agreement with Fruitful Vine Christian Church for rental of the top floor of the Burning Bush Clubhouse. Whereas pursuant to Town Law 64-2A, the town board is authorized to lease town-owned property And whereas Fruitful Vine Christian Church wishes to rent the top floor of the Burning Bush Clubhouse for a term of 12 months, lease to expire on March 19, 2021, at an annual rent of $21,600. And whereas the tenant may elect to remain in possession of the property after March 19, 2021, as a month-to-month tenant for up to 12 consecutive months. Now therefore be it resolved that the town supervisor is hereby authorized to sign the attached lease agreement with Fruitful Vine Christian Church for rental of the top floor of the Burning Bush Clubhouse, provided that the town is provided a certificate of insurance in the amount of $1 million, naming the town of Clifton Park as additionally insured. A resolution extending the hours of the convenience transfer station for the annual spring cleanup, green-up, and fall cleanup weeks. Whereas a request has been made by Jeffrey Vedder, transfer station supervisor, for authorization to extend the hours of the convenience transfer station for the annual spring cleanup, green-up week to include Sundays, April 26th and May 3rd, 2020, and whereas Jeffrey Vedder, transfer station supervisor, has also requested that the transfer station be open on Sundays, October 25th and November 1st, 8th, and 15th, between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. for fall cleanup of leaves and brush only. And whereas authorization for overtime costs for the extended hours is required. Now therefore be it resolved that the transfer station supervisor is hereby authorized to extend the hours of the convenience transfer station for the annual spring cleanup, green-up week, and the annual fall cleanup week, to include Sundays as noted above, with the extended hours to be as set forth in the attached Schedule A, and be it further resolved that the Sunday hours will be for the collection of leaves and brush only, while all other items will be taken during the regular hours from Tuesday through Saturday. A resolution authorizing the hiring of a part-time seasonal laborer for the transfer station, whereas an opening exists for a part-time seasonal laborer for the transfer station, and whereas Jeffrey Vedder, transfer station supervisor, has recommended that Michael A. Grimmer, 24 Damask Drive, Clifton Park, who has worked at the transfer station in the past, will be rehired to fill the position. Now therefore be it resolved that Michael Grimmer be hired for part-time seasonal work at the transfer station for the summer of 2020, effective immediately, to be paid $12.50 an hour from transfer station employee. A resolution accepting a quote and authorizing the signing of an agreement for background searches for peddlers, door-to-door, and transient applicants. Whereas Clifton Park Town Clerk Teresa Grobston seeks to expand the town's capacity to conduct background searches for peddlers, door-to-door, and transient applicants. And whereas the town clerk's office currently requests background checks performed by the Clifton Park Justice Court, the Saratoga County Sheriff's Office, and the New York State Sex Offenders Registry. And whereas the town clerk's office advises that many seasonal applicants are from out of state, where local searches do not yield results. And whereas Selective Insurance has recommended that the town consider retaining IntelliCorp to conduct a national background search at a preferred rate of $17.65 based on a partnership between Selective Insurance and IntelliCorp. And whereas through the town's insurance company, IntelliCorp offers a discount rate of $17.65 per background check. And whereas Town Clerk Grobston recommends the accepting the quote of IntelliCorp, now therefore be it resolved that the town board accepts the quote from IntelliCorp in the amount of $17.65 per background check to be paid from Town Clerk other contractual, and authorizes the signing of the agreement. A resolution authorizing the sale of equipment declared surplus by the town board and authorizing the highway department to sell the surplus equipment at public auction. Whereas Dan Bull, Highways Superintendent, has identified an Atlas wheel balancer WB32 item number WB12 phase 1-112 volt as surplus property, and whereas based upon the recommendation of Mr. Bull, the town board declares the wheel balancer as surplus. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board authorizes the highway department to sell the surplus equipment as is through an upcoming online public auction. A resolution authorizing the Capital Bicycle Race Club to use town roadways for time trials for several times, May through August 2020. Whereas Capital Bicycle Race Club has requested the use of the town of Clifton Park roadways as specified in the attached hereto for the purpose of time trials to qualify for future races on Wednesdays, May 27th, June 3rd, 10th, and 24th, starting at 6:15 p.m. until the last participant finishes. Is that supposed to be p.m. or a.m.?
PM, yeah.
Okay. Whereas the club has also requested permission to hold an event on Sunday, August 9th, 2020, following the same course as the Mohawk Hudson Towpath Duathlon, and whereas Highways Superintendent Dan Bull recommends approval of the club's request to conduct time trials on the roads as enumerated, now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby authorizes the Capital Bicycle Race Club to use town roadways as specified and attached hereto for the purpose of holding time trials, and be it further resolved that this approval is expressly conditioned upon receipt prior to June 1st, 2020 in the office of the town clerk of an insurance certificate in the amount of $1 million naming the town of Clifton Park as an additional insured, and be it further resolved that this approval is expressly conditioned upon the roads not being closed, but members of the Capital Bicycle Race Club are permitted to raise awareness of the trials at the intersections and the end of each course. A resolution hiring Gene Spiegel as confidential secretary in the supervisor's office at Town Hall. Whereas the supervisor is authorized to designate a confidential secretary pursuant to New York State Law 2915, whereas an opening exists in the position of confidential secretary to the supervisor, whereas Supervisor Phil Barrett wishes to designate Gene Spiegel, 5 Hilltop Hollow, Clifton Park as confidential secretary to the supervisor, now therefore be it resolved that Gene Spiegel, 5 Hilltop Hollow, Clifton Park is designated confidential secretary to the supervisor at grade 7, step 2, $30.55 per hour is to be paid from supervisor employee effective immediately.
Okay. Any questions on the resolutions? All right, Teresa, if you could read each heading, please.
Resolution number 54 of 2020, a resolution adopting local law number 1 of 2020 to establish a moratorium on residential subdivision within the Conservation Residential District. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Ms. Walworth, and again, want to thank everybody for commenting this evening and presenting your ideas and opinions. That'll all be taken into account as we proceed with the process. Okay, any discussion? Yes, Mr.
Well, I would just add to this that I think it's a good problem to have revisiting the GEIS as upstate New York hollows out, we continue to lose population, we'll lose another 1, perhaps 2 congressional seats in the upcoming census. Clifton Park has remained a dynamic community, and I think the need to update the GEIS reflects that dynamism. So I think it's a good problem to have as opposed to a community that is hollowed out, hemorrhaging population, hemorrhaging business. We've been successful, and I think this reflects that. And I think the proposal here with an aggressive timeline reflects a balance, as Isabel talked about, between balancing the needs of the community and the property rights of individual landowners, which of course we certainly respect. So certainly look forward to the work the planning department will do on this and see what this will do in 6 months.
Yeah, absolutely. We say rather often that we have a very aggressive trails plan, very aggressive open space plan. The results are there for everybody to see. We're very proud of our record in those areas. The latest initiative along those lines is the Town Center Park at Exit 9. And so there's, people want good programs. They want parks and recreational facilities, trails. These are all things we've been able to accomplish without putting the town in a precarious financial position. As a matter of fact, as we've completed this incredible track record in all these areas over the last 20 years, our financial position has become stronger. So, you see other communities that kind of wildly take stabs at doing different programs and spending a lot of money with mixed results, and at the end of the day, they end up encumbered with a lot of debt and somewhat dubious results. In our case, it's not that way. We take a very frugal, smart, measured approach to all of these programs, and that's why we're able to accomplish so much, but at the same time grow even stronger financially. A lot of that comes from what you just talked about, Jim, which is the the town center plan and the growth in the tax base that we've seen now over $5 billion. And a lot of that is due to the redevelopment projects in the Exit 9 area. Each one is incredibly important to paying for all of these programs that we've been discussing tonight. So, thank you. All right, Teresa?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 55 of 2020, a resolution adopting an amendment to the Town of Clifton Park Employee Handbook.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Whalen, second by Ms. Wallowit, and you're still reviewing some stuff, right? Yeah, okay, good.
I'm glad.
Yeah, we did, oh, no. No, I was not alluding to that whatsoever. No, just a question. So we just had a small change, and it's really just associated with the use of town computers with regard to personal use versus professional. We've continually put in place new improvements, security improvements with our systems over the last several years. We've invested a large amount of funding for new servers and redundant servers and new hardware and software, but also implementing some security measures that aren't terribly expensive, but they are very important to do. So every year we continue to make our systems more resilient and stronger, but there's also policy areas that we want to revisit on occasion, which I guess is a theme tonight. One of those is the has to do with using town computers for personal use, and we want to make it so we understand that employees do have to use computers to look up items that they may need to purchase and look at different prices, so they may go to websites that are retail websites. So we understand that that's to happen, but we want to keep that to a minimum. In other words, surfing on the internet to a minimum, unless it's for business use. Now, especially now, because it's rare that somebody doesn't have a smartphone, and we do have Wi-Fi available, so if it's very easy for somebody to use their phone, which is not on a town system, to do their own personal surfing if they choose to do that on their own time. But we want to curtail any use that might be occurring with personal use of computers. So that's what this very slight change in the employee handbook is meant to bring about. As well.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add to that is I think this reflects a prior time when mobile devices weren't as accessible, and I think there was an understanding on the part of employers that prohibiting a blanket prohibition on employees from using computer devices and technology for personal use, well, it's good in theory, it was really difficult to enforce in practice.
Right.
And to your point, I mean, people should be working when they should be working. To the extent that they're not, looking at websites or whatever, they should be doing it on their personal devices. And I think it's important from a legal standpoint to make sure we're upfront and transparent with employees what they can and can't do. And also from a security standpoint, I think this helps protect the town, letting people know that they should not be going to websites that they should not be going to, potentially exposing the town to cybersecurity risks as well. So if anything, I would look at this not only from an HR standpoint, but also from a cybersecurity standpoint. I think strengthening our cybersecurity posture as well.
Yeah, I agree. And then, currently it reads incidental and occasional. Any non-business use should be incidental and occasional. So we would remove and occasional and leave incidental, because again, we understand that there are times when employees are using it for business use. So this would be taking out occasional. Okay. I think that's all I want to say about that. If you have anything to add?
No.
Okay. All right, very good. And with all the hacking, certainly we want to make our systems as resilient as possible anyway. We've been doing that for several years in particular. But with the recent hacking that's occurred, it's becoming more and more prevalent. So we need to drill down on any possible action that we can take to, whether it be policy or new equipment, new software, whatever the case may be, new programs, to institute every possible safety measure. We're instituting new password criteria for programs. We've eliminated the ability, we have in the past eliminated the ability for certain email searches. So in other words, if you use Yahoo, AOL, or some other mail service, you can't get into the computer, a town computer, using that. So those are just some of the things that we've done. We'll have a list of that available to the town hall. I've asked Matt and Ryan from ABS to get that list together. All right. Any further discussion? Okay. Teresa?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallach?
Yes.
Supervisor Barry?
Yes.
Resolution number 56 of 2020, a resolution authorizing the town supervisor to enter into an extension of a license and service agreement with County Waste and Recycling Service Incorporated. So moved.
Moved by Mr. Standard, second by Mr. Whalen. County Waste did approach us about extending the current yard waste agreement. They have proposed an extension of 2 years, beginning December of 2020 through November of 2022, which is after the yard waste season has been completed. So I think it should be 2-year extension, because that's what they've offered at this point. Our town yard waste program has been very successful for many years. We do receive $60,000 a year from County Waste. They also pick up yard waste from residents in the town, April through November. So it's a very good agreement for the town, because everything that's picked up, this is the other good part of it, everything that's picked up is processed and it's gone. So we don't have town employees and town equipment handling that yard waste, processing it, trying to get rid of it. It's processed professionally and it's gone. Something obviously that nobody wants. That's why they bring it to the transfer station. So anyway, I would support moving ahead with another 2 years on the contract extension with County Waste for this service. Okay, are there any questions? All right, very good. Teresa?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallach?
Yes.
Supervisor Barry?
Yes.
Resolution number 57 of 2020, a resolution authorizing the hiring of pool management for the 2020 season per 2020 summer pool directors, managers, Schedule A.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Wallace, second by Mr. Whalen. Dwayne Nichols, Bruce Sutphin, Brian Zerpak will be returning, so we welcome them back. We're also adding to our pool management staff in certain areas, and we do look forward to another successful pool season. We started talking the last couple of years on ways to maybe engender more interest from teenagers that might be interested in being lifeguards. Unfortunately, we've seen the number of lifeguards interested in general declining. So we're hoping to get more interest and get more young people involved in the program. The town does provide the training. It's a great summer job, so we're going to continue to ramp up our efforts to recruit and see if we can generate some interest there. All right, any discussion? Teresa?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilwoman Walowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 58 of 2020, a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign a lease agreement with Fruitful Vine Christian Church for rental of the top floor of the Burning Bush Clubhouse.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Ms. Wallowit. They've been there for a fair number of years at this point. They've been great tenants, and just the whole situation there at the Burning Bush Clubhouse, as we call it, and the pool and the park, and they fit in very nicely. So I would recommend that we continue this relationship with the church. Yeah. Discussion? Teresa?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilwoman Walowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 59 of 2020, a resolution extending the hours of the convenience transfer station to the annual spring cleanup, green up, and fall cleanup weeks.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Wallowit, second by Mr. Whalen, and this, in this situation, the transfer station is open some extra days during the spring and fall. As I just discussed, county waste will continue to pick up yard waste, but residents also have the opportunity to bring that yard waste themselves, and many do, which we promote. We're fine with that. Donnie's here. How you doing?
Good, Mr. Mayor.
How are things down at the old transfer station?
Good.
Yeah, so far so good?
So far, so good, yeah.
All right. Anything to add on any changes or anything to add as far as these hours go?
No, just looking forward to spring so that they can come and bring their material.
All right, very good. Okay, any discussion?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilwoman Walowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 60 of 2020, a resolution authorizing the hiring of a part-time seasonal laborer for the transfer station.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Mr. Whalen. Mr. Grimmer is a returning part-time seasonal helper, so what were your impressions of Mr. Grimmer and his work ethic?
Oh, I'm sorry, Michael is a very good worker. He's there, he's always looking for something to do, so he's a good person to have on.
He has a unique nickname, too.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, I slept.
Oh, were you going to say
Sorry
that?
to say
Yeah. Well, it's easy. But, yeah, he seems to, he's very good. He seems to be very outgoing, and that's a very important part of the job, too. Obviously, it's a retail-type position. People are coming down there rather often, and having somebody that's interacting with residents, answering their questions, and outgoing in that manner is always good to have. So we welcome Michael back to the transfer station here soon. All right, Teresa?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilwoman Walowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 61 of 2020, a resolution accepting the quote and authorizing the signing of an agreement for background searches for peddler, door-to-door, and transient applicants.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Wallowit, Mr. Whalen, second by Ms. Wallowit. You want to talk about this one, Teresa?
Just the need for an additional background searches, the nationwide background searches,
Mhm.
just continuing to make sure that our residents are safe.
Yeah.
That the people who are coming to their door have been checked out.
Good. Well, it's a very good idea. We made some other changes to this law last year, and I think this is another good change. So, thank you. Discussion, questions for Teresa?
No, thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome. Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilwoman Walowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 62 of 2020, a resolution authorizing the sale of equipment declared surplus by the town board and authorizing the highway department to sell the surplus equipment at public auction. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Whalen, second by Mrs. Standard. Is that the only thing?
Yep, that's it.
There's nothing else?
I'm sure we could find more, but during
Does
winter,
highway have anything?
What's that?
Does highway have anything, or is this it?
This is highway. No, we just purchased a brand new wheel balancer. This current wheel balancer couldn't handle the wheels that we had for the full town fleet. The new one does. So we just cleaned this one up, repainted it, made it look brand new, and we're going to put it on the auction block.
Gee, we
So
usually have more items.
We did several mass cleanings over the last 2 years, so I think we're getting to the point where our house is clean.
All right, well, that's it for highway. If you're looking for bargains, the pickings are slim this time. Okay. Teresa?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 63 of 2020, a resolution authorizing the Capital Bicycle Race Club to use town roadways for time trials for several times made through August 2020.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Wallowitz, second by Mr. Whalen. We've been working with this group for quite some time. Any changes here?
Nope, no changes, just the dates, and these are all qualifying runs for qualifying races, I guess you'd say, for other duathlons. So it's something that people sign up to. They come to Riverview Road in Southern Clifton Park because it's relatively quiet and safe, and they've been doing a great job at keeping things safe.
Very good. Okay, aren't they moving up? Yeah, they're moving up the date though of the duathlon. Yeah, because there was one in October. Aren't they moving that date up?
Not sure.
Oh, okay. All right.
As you can tell, I'm not much of a runner/bicyclist.
All right, Teresa.
Councilman Whalen?
I'd never see that, yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 64 of 2020, a resolution hiring Gene Spiegel as confidential secretary in the supervisor's office in Town Hall.
So, second.
Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Mr. Whalen, and Jean is here tonight. How are you?
Good, thank you.
So I hope you enjoyed the meeting tonight.
It's very enlightening.
It's better than anything you can watch on TV, right? So we welcome Jean. She has a great background, very diverse background, a little bit of everything. Retail, human resources, managing large groups of people, conducting special projects, and I think she'll fit right in at the town and do a great job. And we certainly have a lot of projects on the horizon and some new ideas that we'll be implementing soon after her arrival, and she starts a week from today. So, got some new ideas and some new stuff coming down the pike. We're excited. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, Teresa?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes. Hey, is that it? All right, we're on the same page. Okay, any other business come before the board this evening? Seeing none, we'll go to public privilege. If you'd like to speak on a town matter, please raise your hand. We'll ask that you come forward. State your name and address for the record, and please keep it to 5 minutes or less. No?
Nothing.
No?
Motion to adjourn.
You like to swim?
Not really.
No? Well, I said we were going to recruit lifeguards, so, you know, I figured I'd give it a shot. So you don't want to be a lifeguard?
I have a job.
Okay. That's good. That's good. Nobody else. Okay, we have a motion by...
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowitz? Supervisor Barrett?
Yes, thank you.